I've made a Google document, so you don't need to worry too much about taking notes. The only thing that you need to take is this URL here. So the first thing I'd like people to do is if you can type this URL into a new tab on your browser, that's https://bit.ly/2020 Saitama JALT workshop. That URL will redirect you back to this document that you're actually looking at. And this document is what, Kushal, you're
Rab, do you mind posting that on chat? Maybe
I can do that as well. Yeah, I can do that as well. Very good idea. Let me just get that posted on the chat.
It is posted. That's our job. Anything that comes up like that, we'll take care of it.
All right, does someone post it in the chat? I can do that. They haven't.
Yeah, it's done. It's done. Thanks.
All right, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a concept that Google innovators started a number of years ago. It's called a hyperdocument. And what it is, it's a document with other documents nested inside. And students, teachers, anyone in any classroom setting or an online teaching session or even face-to-face in the class, they don't need to go through this in a linear order. People can go through it and dip in and dip out for the parts that interest them. So this is a huge, big hyperdocument that I guarantee we won't get through everything today. This was something that I used in a face-to-face session down in Kyushu in January when I did a 3-hour session for them down there. And that was alone, and I hadn't students with me, and there was no breakout rooms. So that's at the private. Let me just quickly share that. Should be anyone with the link. Let me just change that setting. Okay, should be set as open access now. You should be able to click on that. Everyone got that? Okay, perfect. Okay, so this has got everything that we're going to use today, so you don't need to worry about taking notes. You can just sit back, relax, even have a beer or whiskey in your hand as you're taking in this session if you like. Just relax. Everything is here for you. Don't need, hey, Stephen's already on the ball. You don't need to worry too much about any of this stuff. Now, to see who we've got in the room, what I did, this next link down should redirect you to another document. And I'm very quickly going to set this to open access as well. And again, you can see the URL here. Let me just set that. And everybody should be able to access this document as well. So if people can just stick their name, you don't need your full name, just your first name in here. Don't need to bother with second names. If you want to put an email address in so that other people in the call can contact you, yes. If you don't, privacy is important to you, don't bother. The main thing I'm interested in is the next 3 columns. Why would you rate yourself as a techie? If you're giving yourself a score between a 1 and a 10, would you say, so let's put me in as a model, right? I'd probably give myself a 9 because I'm pretty good at most techie things, but there's some things I don't do. Video conferences, I've used all of these. I've used all of these. So I've experienced using all of these LMS, CMS apps. I've used all of these video conferencing apps, and I think I'm fairly techie. I'm just kind of trying to get a feel for who's in the room. So if everybody's giving themselves a 1 and a 1 and a 1 and a 1 and a 1, then I'll know I need to go back to basics. If everyone's giving themselves 7, 8s and 9s, I might be asking you to teach me some things as we go along. So if everybody can very quickly just put some data and populate this table, and this is your own kind of self-access. Oh, I'll need to check that to edit. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me set this one to edit. Okay, you should be able to edit this one. First one is view only because I don't want anyone deleting the links. This one is edit access, so you should be able to go ahead and put some things in here.
I want to make sure we're all on the same page. And the link we're looking at now, that's accessible through the bit.ly 2020.
Yep. Everything is.
Okay.
I
can
put the
see some people
direct
joining
link
now.
in here as well. So the direct link I've just added to the chat, but of course it's also available through the link here as well. So the hyper document is linking back to absolutely everything. Arisa, probably not a good idea for you guys to put your email address in here, just for privacy issues and so on, so I wouldn't bother. If anyone's got any questions that they want to ask you, they can contact me and I can feed them over. But just for you guys, because you're still at school, probably not so good idea to put your email on a public doc. I'll just send the link out again. Yeah. Now, what you're actually doing here is a very good example of what I usually do with my students on the first day of class, whether it's an in-person class in the room or whether it's an online class. I would create some document like that. I would share it via a public edit access customized shortened URL. And all of a sudden, I'm harvesting the data that I need to know information about my students. Now, obviously, for the students, I would actually have them put their Gmail addresses in so I can create Google Groups and various things like that with them as well. So a range of different numbers here from 3s, 1s and 2s, right the way up to 7s. Okay, so we can see people are putting some information in here. So that's a very simple, easy, basic way to harvest that information via Google Docs. We can also do the same thing if we look at the next link underneath. And the next link underneath will redirect everyone to a very quick form. And again, this is more or less asking the same questions. If people can very, very quickly put in some scores here on the Google form, that's the next link down. For example, okay, so I've very quickly done mine. You'll be able to see your response, but rather than seeing your response, if you go underneath, I've actually put in a live link and we click on the responses. And we'll see the responses as they come in. So at present, you're just looking at mine and one other person's. And that live link there will show you the responses to the form. So very quickly, if we get people filling that in. Okay, so we're getting a range of different responses coming in. Interesting answer. I think it is just that I don't have much experience with technology. That's the key thing. Most people aren't good at anything until they've had experience in doing it. Once you start doing stuff, you realize, hey, that's not so hard. What can I do next? So it's having that ability, the confidence to try things and not be worried about failure. And in the ed tech world, Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, all those guys, they have something they call the 3 fails. Fail fast, fail forward, and fail often. So fail fast is that you learn very quickly that you've made a mistake and you can go back and fix it. What we don't want is you continuing on for a year-long study and not realizing that you've made some fundamental error at the beginning. So we want to fail fast to get the feedback to fix it. Fail often means the more times we fail, the more learning opportunities we have to get better at doing something. And fail forward means that the failure is contributing to moving our skills forward so that we're actually learning from the failure rather than giving up. And I think that's something that educational people should be picking up a lot. Fail fast, fail forward, fail often. Because that really improves us as educators. So this is, you're not going to get that unless you get experience, and it's the experience, the willingness to try. And that's what someone's got in the next answer here, willing to try things and learn as I go. That's exactly the attitude to have. I couldn't even tell you the last time I bought a book to learn anything. I just Google it. I can find a website or a YouTube video or a tutorial video, and we learn how to do things in a kind of rough and ready way. And then the real learning comes when we actually do the thing. That's where the real learning takes place. So we've got some interesting results and answers here. And again, as people go into these, I'll keep these forms open. So you've got access to these here. And of course, via this link, you've always got access to the master document. Now, I don't know how many people have seen this article. I've put this Mainichi article in here. The ladies are with me. They might actually have seen this in one of my classes. This is an article from May the 9th. Roughly 1 month after all the schools and colleges and universities switched to online learning. And after 1 month, the Mainichi sent out surveys to 111 lecturers at a number of different universities, 66 universities. And they got quite a good response rate of 62%. But it was the responses that they actually got. Many of the respondents were saying, I'm not good at doing this. Students are not learning the classes. The online classes are not very good. We've been given no training on these things. And it ended up being, wow, this is not what we expected. Well, it kind of was what I expected, to be honest. Because having worked in education in Japan for about 20 years, they really are in the doldrums. They really are stuck in the past. And I have friends who teach at a number of different universities who have been telling me horror stories of what's happened when they've been trying to implement these online technology classes. To spare their blushes, one of the universities shall remain nameless, but I used to work there, and their online infrastructure was a bit of a joke. They didn't have a campus-wide Wi-Fi until about 2 years ago. They only had pockets of Wi-Fi in some rooms in some buildings, and it didn't have much bandwidth because most people weren't using it. And guess what happened when they started to try to do online classes via some networks that they had set up? They decided to use Microsoft Office 365 using Google Teams, and within about a few hours their network crashed because they didn't have the bandwidth to all of a sudden support these teachers whose idea of multimodality was using 5 colors of chalk and a blackboard. All of a sudden they were having to do things online and they didn't have the bandwidth for it. So they made a decision and they said to the teachers, Microsoft Teams for video meetings is great, but please don't use it with your classes. Only use it for meetings with other teachers. What's up with that? During the lockdown, the last person I need to talk to is another teacher. I need to communicate with my students. And they actually told them, don't use it. And they said, let's not do live lectures like we're doing now. Let's do it asynchronously. Can you just upload everything to Moodle? Or whatever other systems they were using. And they hit the same problem as well. They didn't have the bandwidth. So they actually had to tell teachers, please don't upload anything and set assignments for the middle of the day. Can you do it early in the morning and late at night? Rather than actually fix the core issue. And this is not an isolated case. There are many other universities that were not doing the things that they should have been doing to actually have an infrastructure in place that was ready to go for this online remote learning. And my own particular classes, and you can ask the ladies about this later, the way that I teach at school, the way that I teach at university, the way that I teach my adult business learners, it's the same thing I do with all of them. Everything is done online via a class hyperdocument. All the links are there. Their work is submitted online via Google Documents. Switching to online was almost no difference for me. The only difference was instead of me talking to them in the classroom, I'm talking to them in a virtual classroom like now. Every other piece of instruction happened the same way. Here's the Google document, I want you to read this. Here's the link to the newspaper story, I want you to read that. Here's a document, I want you to input some data in here. It made no difference to me. And my students do a lot of reflective blogging. I think this is a wonderful thing. Old school teachers probably do it with a pen and a notepad, but that brings up its own problems in that, how do you prove when the students did these class reactions? Because there's no date stamp on a piece of paper. Well, there is on a blog, so we can actually see when they've done it. And I've got a requirement for the blogs to be done within 3 days of the class ending. I check their blogs on a regular basis. There's an app that I use for this called Feedly. And that blog helps me realize if I'm doing something right or something wrong. So for example, if one of the students writes something on the blog that was wrong, that was the opposite to what I had taught in class, I can send that student a little corrective note to saying, nah, it's not quite that way, it's the other way around. But what happens if all 20 of the students get it wrong? That means they've got it right. It's my explanation that's been wrong, and I need to do a corrective follow-on explanation in the next class because all 20 of them have written this wrong thing on their blog. So that helps me fine-tune the quality of instruction that I'm giving in the classes. And it helps the students when they know that I am actually reading these things and giving some comments back to them. So from reading these blogs, quite a few of my students from junior high school year 2, right the way up to year 6, at the end of high school, I was getting some similar comments coming through that they were quite surprised at how smooth the transition was to online classes in my class because it wasn't much different from what we did in the class. But quite a few of those students were telling me it was a very different story in their other classes. Some teachers were just using the system to email them lots of worksheets and nothing else. There were no real face-to-face classes taking place on a large scale. Some teachers weren't using the system at all. I heard of some university students that professors were using the mailing system to physically post paper worksheets out to people, which, you know, that's pretty bad. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I'm going to share some slides with you. Let's go. Sound. We're going to look at some slides that might be a little bit shocking for you. Can everybody see this? Let's make that a bit bigger. Can you all see that okay? Yeah, okay. This was a survey of mainly OECD countries, and it was looking at students who were taking ICT tests, information communication technology tests. So obviously level 3 is a very good pass, level 2's decent pass, level 1 not so great, below level 1 not good at all, and the hash mark for the failure is like really bad. And if we look here, look at the scores for Japan. Of all the OECD countries, it has the highest percentage of students with a hash mark, which is those who failed the ICT core test or had zero computer experience. And if we look at the black bar is the percentage of students who didn't even do the test in the first place. And again, Japan has one of the largest scores there. And this is 16 to 24-year-olds. They just don't know very much about educational technology. And this got me thinking, well, you know, why not? And again, this is part of the TALIS study, which was looking at OECD countries mainly. And this was looking at junior high school teachers who said, yes, my junior high school students use ICT for their project work or classwork or homework. Look where Japan is on that list. That's embarrassingly bad. Lower than 10%. So these kids who are going through this system, sooner or later, they end up at university, and a number of them end up in my university classes. And in my university classes, Toyo, where I teach, it's quite a good ranking university. We've got lots of international students coming, Southeast Asian students on a scholarship, etc. And these international students, they're cool with all this technology. They can use it. They've maybe used it before. But my Japanese students who have came through the normal Japanese school system, they're light years behind. And these are bright kids. These are not stupid kids. These are smart students. They've just never been exposed to this stuff. All they've ever dealt with is pencil and paper. They haven't been exposed to this educational technology. Showing you a quick example. This was a friend of mine who was teaching in Hong Kong. On the educational training, I mentioned I did the Koei-tail course, and my friend Jamie, who made this video, was also on the Koei-tail course. This is an elementary school in Hong Kong.
After learning about geographical features, the students were able to choose one that they would like to spend more time researching about. What we did is we had half the class do research and then publish that to their website. At the same time, we had the other half of the class use paper by 53 on the iPads to sketch out the geographical feature that they had chosen. When we were complete, we actually had the students upload their sketch to ThingLink and then turned that image into an interactive image whereby the research that they had conducted previously could be tagged onto their image and embedded in their web blog.
do a show of hands. How many of you could just do what those elementary students did? And you're teachers. I can do that stuff, but I can't do it with my students because I don't work in a school which is on a 2-to-1 program where every kid has got a laptop and an iPad. I know all of these apps. I can show them to my own kids, but my children. I can't show them to the students that I teach at school or university because we don't have an infrastructure in place to deal with this. And that's an elementary school. Now that's part of a much longer video that I don't want to play the whole thing, but at the very beginning of the video, you actually see the students flying a drone with their iPads. The university in my schools don't even have drones. And this is elementary school kids. So imagine these elementary school kids, they're learning all these things, they've all got their own website, they've all got their own blogs, they've all got their own apps, they've all got their own devices. Are they really going to want to come to Japan to go to university if they're given pencil, paper, blackboard and chalk? How are we going to attract these kind of international students? And this is one of the big issues. Now, it's not just Hong Kong. A couple of years ago, I was in Singapore and I was presenting at EdTech conference there, and I saw this. This is amazing.
The 40-seater bus, retrofitted with engaging and innovative technology, will be traveling to primary schools and public places to conduct workshops and fun activities.
Learning in a bus, there's actually aircon and it's actually very fun. The mentors will come personally to teach you how to do some of the programming. All the things that we learn in the bus is all about games. While in the classroom, we learn about science, and sometimes the teacher might not make the lesson.
Sometimes the teacher might not make the lessons as interesting. That's a bus that visits a different school each day, bringing technology to the kids, showing them how to do things. And again, as far as I know, that there's kind of nothing like that in Japan. What we do have in Japan, my son goes to a junior high school, and this year they made a really big show of how amazing and wonderful it is because all the kids have got an iPad. And this was the iPad that my son brought home. And you'll notice some interesting things about this iPad. There's a lot of apps missing. iMovie, deleted. App Store, deleted. Messages, that doesn't work. Emails, deleted. It's like giving a kid a Ferrari and taking the wheels off it. Why even bother? Now, watch what happens when we do something here. They deleted Safari, and of course, there's no ability to install Chrome or anything else, but they've added a special school browser. And we open up the school browser, and we do a search for something, you know, for example, maybe tigers. Maybe we're doing a project on tigers. And we do a search, and we want to find some photos of tigers and some videos of tigers. Sorry, search blocked. What kind of a school browser blocks photos and videos from the search results? All you can do is read text. And we contrast that to what I've just shown you about Singapore, Hong Kong, etc., etc. So we can see, you know, this is far from ideal. So what can we do here? There's a concept called app smashing. Has anyone heard of app smashing? So this is where we recognize that different apps have got different limitations, but by combining them together, we can get beyond those limitations. Now, if you're trying to do this in Japan, your biggest limitation right away is the students might not have these devices to access the apps in the classroom anyway. And in one respect, that was where the remote teaching, the distance teaching was really, really good, because the students were in the privacy of their own home. And some of the silly school rules of no laptops, no iPads, no tablets in the classroom no longer apply because the students are at home and of course they can access these devices, etc., etc. But to get this done, a certain kind of teaching approach is necessary. How many people have heard of TPAC? See, Adam's got his hand up, maybe the others not. So TPAC is a concept that Mishra and Kohler developed about 10, 15 years ago. And it's in recognition of the fact that long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, To be a teacher, the only thing you needed was content knowledge. If you knew subject A, you could teach it. And you were probably a bad teacher. And then the idea of pedagogy came along to make us better teachers. How can we be more efficient teachers, more engaging, more inspirational, whatever? And pedagogy combined with knowledge makes for a better teacher. And then there's technology. Now, some people say, you know, I don't use technology. Well, even paper and pencil is technology. It's just high technology of a bygone age. If we jump back hundreds of years ago when all the kids had a blackboard and chalk as a slate, paper and pencil would be seen as high tech. Typewriters would be seen as high tech 30, 40, 50 years ago. So the technology's always been there. It's just there's an exponential curve in the growth of technology that some teachers are finding it hard to keep up with. Take the concept of flipped learning. How many people have done flipped learning? Or you heard about it? So what flipped learning is the passive part of the classroom, the passive sitting watching a video or the passive reading a book has been flipped to homework. And we tell the students to watch the videos at home or read the book at home. In the classroom, we're going to do the follow-on active teaching methods. Well, in the past, you could easily flip a book for homework, read the book at home. But you couldn't easily flip the video unless you had a way of making 25 VCR cassettes and you realized that every kid had a VCR in their house. Not ideal. Technology's now got to the stage you can put something on YouTube, just tell the kids watch this on YouTube and we'll discuss it in the class. So putting the passive at home, the active in the classroom. But then there's even how to choose the apps that we're going to use. How many people are familiar with the SAMR model? Again, Adam, Shannon, a little bit. So this was a model to decide which apps we should adopt for use in our classroom. And it's designed to help teachers make informed choices. So I guess, has everybody here used Google Maps? Has everybody used a paper map? Old style paper map, yeah. Imagine if Google Maps, if the only thing that Google Maps did was a PDF version of the paper map online, no other functionality. That would put Google Maps at the substitution level, which is not so useful. But on a paper map, how do we work out the distance between Osaka and Kyoto? Well, we have the paper map, we have the scale at the bottom of the map, and you have a ruler. So you need two other things. You need a ruler, you need a scale, and the map. Well, if Google Maps can do all of those things, that moves Google Map into the augmentation stage, and it's more useful. But how about modifying the task? Previously, we might set the students to work out the distance between Osaka and Kyoto and look at the contour lines and work out which is the best way to walk. If Google Apps allows us to modify that task, not only can we figure out what's the best way to walk by looking at the contour lines on the map, we can actually take students down into Street View and have them walk along that route and have them describe what they're seeing. That's modifying the task. That makes Google Apps even more useful. And how about if it actually enables us to redefine learning in total? How about if we ask the students to make their own maps, to walk from their house to their school, take photos, take videos, write down descriptions, make their own map, and upload the photos, the videos, the descriptions, and they've got their own interactive map that they can then share with other people. We've redefined what it means to be literate in a geography map sense. If Google Maps can do all of those, and it can, that makes it an app worthwhile adopting into our teacher workflow if we were a geography teacher, for example. Whereas if Google Maps was just a PDF of the paper maps and nothing else, it's not really worthwhile putting in the energy and the effort to learn the app. So this is a conceptual model to kind of decide whether the apps are worthwhile for our school or class or college, whatever, to adopt, and it's very, very useful. Now, we need some training for people to learn all these kind of educational technology things. And in Tokyo, we're spoiled for choice. There's a friend of mine.
I'm going to jump in there for just a moment. We have a bit of a house rule. After about 20 minutes of getting going, we like to see what people identify with, what they recognize, what they see as being something they know, and what they don't know. So
before we do that, can I
Sure.
quickly do 2 minutes to go through these, and then
Sure
we'll
thing.
jump into that. That's a very good segue. So try it on Monday. Takes place at the Microsoft offices every December. And it's a teacher-run event by teachers, for teachers, and techie people like myself come along, and they do 1 hour or 90-minute workshops on something on a Sunday that the teachers can try in their class the very next day, hence the name Try It on Monday. And there's a number of gigs throughout Japan now. I think there's 20-something. Myself and a few others, we started the West Tokyo gig, which was the first one. They sometimes run events. And EdCap, there's one in Tokyo, there's one in Nagoya, there's a number of these. And then there's online teacher training things like Koiteo. That's the program that I did, and the guy who made the video in Hong Kong did those as well. So there's a whole range of online places and face-to-face places. Maybe the face-to-face is out at the moment simply because coronavirus, but you've certainly got online places. Microsoft has an online training resource. I'll come back to that later. And so does Google. Apple does as well. I'll highlight some of those later. So now's a good time to do the segue that Shannon mentioned, just to get some feedback from people. So I'll let Shannon take over here.
Yes, I think we've got a few students in the group. So I think some of our young women will be maybe jumping in with their experiences as students. But for now, among the teachers who are either joining us as remote teachers in an emergency teaching situation, or those who've had experience as regular teachers, what if this is making sense of you? What are you, in your experience, how do you relate to technology in the classroom? I'll start. I have been asked as part of my high school to help students basically make the adjustment to an emergency situation. And we haven't had much training as teachers. So for example, using a simple hypertext document to control all links, that simple step is beyond me. So I'm taking note that that's something useful. The other thing I'm taking note on to talk to my teachers about is the SAMR model. It's one of those things that I haven't needed before. So as I've moved forward, I do see needs for that, whether it's talking about how to work with Zoom or Google or other apps. I now have a reference for whether it's just substituting it or whether it's something augmenting, making it better. I'd like to ask some other members in our group to speak as well. I'm not sure how to do that, but I believe maybe a hands up would be cool.
Okay, I can go next, if that's okay. Yeah, so just like everyone else, I've been called into online teaching at 2 universities. And yeah, there's been a kind of contrast between these two. One of the universities always had a good online system. Of course, most people didn't use it, but I was familiar with this system based on Moodle. So I've been using it for a year before we started this semester. So I was pretty comfortable with it, and I was happy that these things were all set up. But for my other university, they had a lot of limitations, and they were definitely not prepared for this situation. So there was a lot of confusion. I would get 3 or 4 emails every day for a whole month before we started the semester. They're trying to explain how to do this and that and all the limitations, and especially the data limitations, like uploading only a smaller file, so you can't upload maybe pictures, things like that. So there were a lot of limitations, and it was hard to transition into this Anyone else?
Okay, well, this is not a forced thing where you have to speak, so we'll keep the chats going, and thank you for that time. Okay, well, that's cool. So, Rab, as they continue, we'll have these every so often when there's a good position. Either you can make the call, or I might give you a little message and say, please give us a moment.
Okay,
Also,
yeah, no
my
worries.
computer overheated. It's now sitting on a big ice pack. So if you could re-enable me as co-host, that will allow me to keep an eye on the waiting room. Thank you so much.
Okay, just doing that now.
Question then on Shannon. Sorry, you mentioned that your computer just overheated.
Yes,
Model.
I have a 2012 Apple MacBook Air, which is amazing for an 8-year-old computer.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2013.
I've heard of this overheating thing happening recently in newer models, but never in something that old.
I think I just started it with a lot of apps open, and it's now literally sitting on the ice pack. I'd be happy to show you later on.
Yeah. Well, thanks. It really piqued my curiosity. Sorry, go ahead, Rab.
No
Sorry
worries.
to interrupt.
All right, I'm going to go back to sharing the screen, and I'm going to jump back into that hyperdocument again. So we spoke about teaching, teaching approaches, SAMR model, using apps, and so on and so on. So there's a couple of things that I generally do with my students. And when I've finished this might be a good segue into bringing the ladies in because they've done these kind of things that I'm going to talk about. So I guess everybody can see the master document. You can see I'm scrolling up and down on the screen. On this, there are a lot of text in blue. Everything in blue is a hyperlink that should be shared as view only for all of you. There's a couple of things that are in red, and they won't open for you at all. And they're private just for me because it's got students' data and things in there. But one of the ways that I teach writing, for example, is via an e-portfolio model. So this is another example of a hyperdocument. And what's going on here is at the beginning, I've got links to some really useful online writing centers. And then I've got little sublinks that jump to various places in the document for the kind of things I want the students to do to focus their writing. So for example, the pre-writing work, this is for an academic writing course at university, but I've used it with some of the high school students as well. They have to start off with their general subject area, then the more specific area they want to research, then what are the competing arguments in this area, and then lastly, what's their position based on all the above. Then if they want to write on this topic, they have to prove to me that this topic is academic, that it is arguable, it's accessible, that they can find the information, the sources that they need, that it's achievable within the time frame, like 5-paragraph essay is never going to cover rise and fall of the Roman Empire, for example. So they have to choose something that's achievable in task, and that it's attractive to some other people. Then we have them develop some research questions, a rough title, and we work on getting a 3-part thesis statement. Then we come in with a little outline, and then I ask them to find sources and resources. So resources would be places like the university library, JSTOR database, Google Books, the United Nations, OECD databases. The sources of the actual books, journal articles, and things that they find from within these resources. Then this is where the real writing comes in. They do a first draft of their paragraph in here, and this document is shared with 2 or 3 other students, usually in a writing group, and they give peer review to each other on that paragraph. Then they write an improved version 2. Then they do more peer review, and then they write a final perfect version 3 for their introduction. Then they move on to body section 1, and we do the same thing there. First draft, second draft, third draft, body section 2. First draft, second draft, third draft, body section 3, then the summary and conclusion. And once we've got that, we've now got a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 for the introduction, and a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 for every part of that essay. We then copy out all the finished best stage 3s and paste them in here as our first full-length draft. And then we look at the connections between them all to see if they flow well together. And we do a peer review checklist. And you know, the checklist is it formatted properly? Does the title grab the attention? Does the introduction use a funnel approach to a thesis? Do the body paragraphs do all this? Is there unity, coherence? You know, we explain all these as we go, and that's their kind of checklist. And then we go through a bundle of writing tools, and you know, the ladies will be able to tell you about these. How many people have used LexTutor? Okay, so what LexTutor does is it leverages the academic word list. And the academic word list is 570 head words, base words. Charlie Brown put me onto this years and years and years ago. And these 570 base words on the left-hand side, they spread out to 3,000 family words here. And over here, we've got the Cambridge Oxford definition of them, simple definitions for students to understand, and we can hear them in British English,
accurate,
and American English,
accurate,
etc. So this list is what's used by LexTutor. And what would happen is we would paste in the student's text in here. Let me find an example of something. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump out and I'm going to grab a student's paper with the data taken out. Give me a second. Let's put that in. What I put in. Let's see if I can find a good example. No, that one wasn't so good. Give me a minute. My computer's sticking a little bit. Give me a sec.
No worries.
Okay,
So
just about got it. Okay, here we go. I'm just copying out a student. I'm just making sure I've taken out any of the kind of identifying marks. We can paste that in here and we can click submit. And what LexTutor does is it checks the text that I just pasted in, and it's telling me that 84% of these words are the K1 words. These are the 1,000 most commonly used words in the English language. And it's telling me that 5.39% are the K2 words. And it's telling me that 2.59% are the academic word list words. And down here, we can actually see the book review that the student pasted. And here is the color coding of the text, matched to K1, K2, AWL, and off-list words. So this would be a good time, and you've got access to all of this, these writing tools. If you click on the writing tools document here, you can open this from the Hyper document. You can open up LexTutor from here. What I'd like everybody to do, and this would be a good segue for you guys, is if you can paste in an example of either your own writing or your students' writing in here, and just see what percentage you get of the overall text from the AWL words. and then maybe we can go around some people and see what kind of feedback we're getting there. And that
So to be clear, you're asking us to find a sample of our own writing or student writing, go to the link provided, paste it in, and see the results.
Yeah. And
okay.
the main results we're interested in is just the AWL results. That's it. Don't worry so much about the other ones. Okay, everybody getting on with that, getting some scores in there.
Yes, although I'm not I'm no technical wizard, I do have my results back.
Okay, so if people can just quickly, maybe in the chat thread, or even if you want to turn on the microphone, are you surprised at the answer that you get? Well, let me give a little bit of context. If I was teaching a freshman university class and they were not doing book reviews, because book reviews skew the results because you're going to be using characters' names, plot devices, and so on. But if they were doing a research essay for me and they were freshman university students, I would expect them to be getting at least a 7. That's what I would expect. So what kind of numbers were you guys pulling up? Anybody get any answers, results they want to share?
I teach an academic writing course at a high level high school, and for the first grade students, we're at 4.9% based off 7 different essays from comparisons of online versus regular education, study abroad versus staying at home, and the role of English. So you're the best for our high schools in Saitama, and we're right at 4.9%.
4.9, right? Now that's high school. That's not too bad. I mean, depending on the base level of the students and so on, but at university, I would expect them to be getting about a 7. Graduation thesis, maybe an 8 or a 9. Master's level, maybe a 9 or a 10. Postgraduate, doctoral, maybe a little bit beyond that. But that's a useful tool for checking those kind of things. Now, there are a whole load of other tools in here that I also have the students use. Analyze my writing, for example. If we paste in the same book review in here and we analyze the text, we get the number of sentences, characters, apostrophes, wherever, how many small words, medium words, long words, short sentence, medium, long. Then we can go to the common words and phrases and we can see how often we've used each word and a word cloud of what themes develop from it. And we can also get readability. And this tells us that that book review was set at a grade 9. This is based on like the US system. So it's the readability level suitable for grade 9 students. And these are grade 9 students in Japan. So I was quite happy about that score. So there's a range of other tools in here as well. We could go through Paper Rater, for example, and that's a grammar checker and so on. But I think probably now this would be a good time to actually bring my 3 students into this, because they've had extensive experience of using all of these tools and apps, of which I've only just brought up a few of them here they've used most of the apps in this document to one extent or another. This might be a good idea to bring them into the chat now. Shannon, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm not sure who's first. So thank you again for all our students from Tokyo Gaku Geikai. And at this point, I defer to Mr. Patterson in terms of who should be speaking first.
Well, I think they've probably got some ideas of their own, so I'll defer to them. I'll let the experts choose for themselves.
Alphabetically, Miss Arisa, would you like to begin?
We already decided the order, so I'll be speaking first. Well, as students, today we will be talking about 4 points. I will first be talking about presentations, then Toko will be talking about writing assignments, Minori will be talking about website, and lastly, Tomoko will be talking about blog and learning during coronavirus. So first, I'll be talking about presentation. When you imagine presentation, what do you imagine? I think some of you might imagine a presentation with slides that have summarized bullet points and a person reading notes or scripts. And that's what I had in mind when I first met Mr. Patterson. But after taking his class, my view on presentation have completely changed. And so there are 3 things I've learned last year in Mr. Patterson's class that I think are very effective. So today I'll be talking about those 3 points. Firstly, about slides. Bullet points are effective in a way because students wouldn't have to listen, people wouldn't have to listen to the presenter if they just read the bullet points in most cases, because you can get the vast majority of the content by just reading the bullet points. However, presentations are there so that we can communicate verbally through presentations. However, with bullet points, since we can understand the most important parts without listening to the presentation, I think it is not effective. And it loses the reason to listen to the presenter. So the amount of time it takes to read is faster than the amount of time it takes to say the same content. So people will be concentrated on reading instead of what you're saying. So it is not the most effective way to use bullet points. Instead of Mr. Patterson's class, we learned to use certain types of presentation styles. And in our slides, we only use minimum words and 1 clear picture. And since everyone will not be concentrated on the slides because there are only 2 content, people will be listening to the speaker. So people will be concentrated and they would be able to effectively listen to the presentation. And the second thing I learned is about eye contact. If I ask you to make an eye contact with me, all you have to do is look at me in the eyes. However, if I ask you to make an eye contact with 1,000 people, it will be a harder task than making eye contact with me. So there are a few choices. You can look at 1,000 people blankly, or you can look at people from right to left. But I don't think those 2 choices are the best choices because first of all, looking at them randomly is not making eye contact. And secondly, looking at people from right to left seems a bit unnatural. So the way we learned in Mr. Patterson's class is to look at a person for 3 seconds and then move direction, look at another person for 3 seconds, then look another way and look at another person for 3 seconds and so on. By doing this, since it's only 3 seconds, we'll get to look at the vast majority of the audience by the end of the presentation. And the reason why looking at people and making eye contact is very important in presentation is because when the audience feels as if the presenter is talking to them, they would feel as if the presentation is intended to them specifically, so that they'll be more interested in the content and therefore be more concentrated on what the speaker is saying. So I think in presentations, eye contact is a key, and that way of making eye contact is very effective. And the last point is about scripts. Well, scripts can save you in devastating moments when you blank out suddenly, but at the same time, it's not the best way to present with a script. As I said earlier, presentation is a communication with the audience, which means that reading off from your script is not presenting. It's just reading to your audience. So that's why when we do presentations, we do it without the scripts. And I know some of you are thinking, how on earth are we going to present without a script, especially when it's long? And I thought the same at first. And I thought it was impossible. And I remember saying that to my friends. However, through the classes, we learned that the only thing we need to make that possible is practice. And by practice, I mean real practice. As Steve Jobs once said, we must have over 40 practices and over 100 hours of planning in order to give a high quality presentation. And he said that in one of the interviews. And I don't think we can all practice over 40 times because that sometimes is impossible due to our time schedule. However, I think planning and practicing is more necessary than what we have in mind. So those are the points we learned last year. And I think from this, we've learned to give a high quality presentation. And Mr. Patterson has completely changed my view and my classmates' view on presentation. And ever since I started interpreting his presentation style, not only have I been praised in other classes, but I've also got opportunities like this one to present in front of other people. And at first, I wasn't very good at presenting. But from his class, I've learned how to present in front of people without being as scared as I was before. And I hope what I spoke today gave you an insight of this presentation style and changed your perspective on presentation. Next, next Toko will be talking about the writing.
Just before
Toko will be coming, but we're going to say a huge thank you to Arisa first. Yes, I did change my shirt. I spilled beer all over it. But a huge thank you to Arisa for a killer presentation, totally nailing it. Whether it's 40 times or 200 times, whatever, I bought it. I'm in. I like it a lot. Before we go on with that, do we have some questions from the audience?
Can I just make a quick point as well, just to kind of connect that presenting to the writing? These are not two divorced topics. Every single presentation that they gave is based on a piece of writing that they've done. So the writing and the presentation, they're totally connected. And bringing that back to the flipped learning, I have my own YouTube channel. Just Google it, you'll find me, Rab Paterson on YouTube. And there's subsections on the channel. One of the sections has about 14 videos. Some of them I made with Steve Patton, another ADE JALT member down in Kyushu. We made some videos teaching people how to do presentations. And I've also got some there on academic writing using apps like Zotero for referencing. So this is not just a standalone presentation. This is part of the writing, the presenting, the research. They're all part of an integral whole. And that's a good segue for any other questions people have before we get to Toko on the writing.
If you guys raise your hand using the participants hand raise function, let's see that that's correct. Participants, you can either say yes or, guys, how do we raise hands again in Zoom? Kushal, can you help me here? I forgot how to raise my hand.
There's 3 little dots usually at the top right hand side of the window, and aren't they usually in there?
Okay, I can see a thumbs up, thumbs down. I can see a coffee, yes and no, but for some reason the hand raising where I normally see it, it's missing. Whatever. Oh, Adam J, thank you very much. He's both demonstrated the hand raising and he has a question. Adam.
No, I was just going to say that it's all the way over the left-hand side, other side of the dots.
Okay. Not doing a very good job of this.
You got Tyson had a physical hand up there.
Another way.
Yes, Tyson, please.
Just thank you so much. I mean, and Rab as well. These are techniques that I'm definitely going to use with my students tomorrow because we have presentations coming up. I think that's really cool with the, having the 30 seconds at each student. As I'm always trying to think of ways how we can engage, how our students can engage with the audience. A question would be, can you continue, so if you're doing, for example, a live in-class presentation, there's certain techniques like that. Does that apply also if you're doing something online, like some kind of online, like a Zoom presentation or something like that?
Was that for me or Arisa?
Either or, yeah, both.
Go ahead, Mr. Patterson.
Online presentations are much more difficult simply because there's no body language, because I'm sitting my ass here on a chair and I'm not moving around. There's no movement, there's no physical moving around. I've deliberately sat a little bit back from the camera so I can use my hands for gestures. If you look at most people, you don't really see any gestures when the face is that close to the camera. Adam's modeling it for me perfectly there. So on purpose, I like to sit back, not just because I'm lazy and I want to relax back in my chair, but this allows me to bring in some body language elements that ordinarily I wouldn't have. And the other issue that you're going to encounter when you're doing online presentations, I have two 27-inch monitors in front of me here, and all of you are in one monitor. My slides and my windows are on the other. I've got acres of real estate here. I've got a laptop kicking around here and a phone as well. But many people who are consuming the online presentations might be doing it on a small laptop only. They might only have one window open. And if it happens to be open on the slides, they're not going to see you at all. You just become a disembodied voice. So you've got to put more effort into making the voice more powerful. Or switch between the slide and the camera, slide and the camera.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you for your nice presentation.
Thank you. I believe Tomoko Motohashi, you're next in line. Is that correct?
Toko, I think.
Oh, Toko, Miss Toko Hata. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll be presenting next. So thank you, Arisa. You raised the hurdle a lot. So I don't know if I'll be able to do a presentation that's as good as her, but I'd appreciate if you can like listen and maybe take something home with you today. So next, I will be talking about an assignment that was given over our school break and how like technology that Mr. Patterson taught us has helped us get through that. So first, for the assignment, what was it? Well, it was a book report, and not just any book report, an academic book report with like a really detailed structure and analysis, citations from other authors. Yeah, so it was a very new experience for us, meaning that a lot of us has never written a book report before. And since it was during the coronavirus break, a lot of us panicked because we didn't have the experience and we weren't ready. And I believe that a very hard part about being in an online class is not being able to physically see what to do. So since the teacher isn't there for immediate advice, like we have to see everything through a screen. And even though like the content is the same, the fact that we have to see it on like one screen is kind of confusing. And even though technology is really convenient, sometimes it can be a hurdle for people like who aren't used to technology. So I panicked because I'm not a technology person, and I'm not a writing person, and these two things, like, they were really making me panic. But there were two things that really helped us to get through this, and Mr. Patterson told us about that. So today I'll be talking about those two topics. First, we used Google Documents for our not our presentations, I'm sorry, for our book reviews, and we used the comment function, which is really, really convenient. And may I share my screen for a little bit?
Shannon, you want to enable the screen sharing? You're doing the hosting.
I believe as co-host, I need your help for that.
No.
Okay,
it's done.
cool.
Okay, I did it without asking, but thank you. So this is my academic book review, and as you can see right here, a lot of my peers have commented, and I have like looked over my things and tried to fix those things. And there are two things that are really good about this comment function, and one of them is that we can be really critical about other people. And so I think one of the downsides of like peer reviewing with the person actually in front of you is that you have to be nice, which sounds like a good thing, but sometimes it isn't. If it's your friend, like you have to kind of think about what you're going to say, and even if you think something is bad, you can't really say it because, well, you'd hurt their feelings. But if it's just the entire text on a screen, you can be more you can observe it more and be more objective, more critical. And I think that's what helped a lot of us, like, kind of improve the quality of our writing, because we weren't nice, and that's not usually a good thing, but in this case it was. And I think, even though this next point is kind of the opposite of what I said, I think this comments function also gave us kind of a sense of comfort, because through the coronavirus outbreak, we felt really lonely at home and we didn't know what to do. But with so many people helping us through this comment function, we were able to feel like a sense of trust, a sense of comfort within people that we saw over the screen. And next, I'm going to talk about another thing that helped us get through this project, and that was the usage of online tools, as Mr. Paterson has briefly mentioned. So Mr. Paterson already mentioned things like LexTutor, PaperRater, and Analyze My Writing. Those three things are also very convenient, but today I think I want to talk about Grammarly. I think a lot of you have heard about Grammarly since it is very famous and sometimes it is advertised on YouTube. And for me, grammar is not a very strong point. When I'm staring at a computer screen for a long time, I tend to look over mistakes and be really careless. But using these things that we found from the internet, we were able to kind of check our work and improve the quality more. So overall, what I want to say is a long school break is really irregular and stressing, but it really taught me how to utilize online tools in order to perform better. And although I still prefer, like personally, I prefer physically being in a school, there are things that I can only do digitally, and that's what Mr. Paterson really helped us with. So I believe the ideal situation is a classroom that mixes both traditional teaching and new methods like new technology. And this pandemic will taught me just that. And I really hope in the future I'll be able to use these tools in order to have a better learning experience. And I hope that everyone can do the same as well. Thank you for listening.
Sorry, no, that's rad. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll ask some technical questions later, but you've got just a wonderful demonstration of using this feedback. When you're talking about it, it looks like you're obviously speaking from experience. As you said, students are more honest and like less nice than teachers. And I've been, as a teacher, it's great to hear you say that as a good thing, because I tend to think about the negatives, like, oh, what if I have a student who feels pressured? Then they're going to shut off the rest of the semester or the rest of the year. But I'm happy to hear your other perspectives. That really means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One point about that as well, and I think Toko raised an interesting point, that as teachers, I know why I told them to use the comment function, and it wasn't to cure their loneliness, but sometimes people have other added benefits that we as teachers don't even notice. And it's always kind of interesting to see that gave them a sense of being connected, whereas me, obviously I'm not a teenager. I've got all my things I need at home, got my bottles of whiskey, bottles of beer, got my dogs, got my kids, got a garden, a mountain behind me. I don't necessarily suffer from the loneliness, but that itself is something that if you're a student and you're stuck in an apartment with a lockdown going on, that comment function bringing an extra warmth to things, I think that's pretty good. I've never even considered that. So nice for me to learn something new, an extra benefit from the comment function as well. Yeah, good.
And that's pretty huge. Thank you so much, Ms. Anta. We really appreciate that. And we will have some questions for you soon. Ms. Toko, would you introduce the next person?
Oh, of course. I'm sorry. So after me, Minori will be speaking, and she will be talking about some of the websites that we have been doing throughout our school years. And yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you, Toko. Since Toko has raised the hurdle even higher, I'll try my best. I am Minori Hirai, and I will be talking about how we made a website, how it changed us, and a little bit about what motivates us as students. So we had a chance to make a presentation, make a website in class from Mr. Patterson, and it was a fantastic experiment for me. So how well do you think we can create a website? Well, here it is. I would like to show you the website that me and my team created. And okay. Is this shared properly?
Yep, they're good.
Okay. This is the website that me and my teammates made. And I wanted to share the link, but due to privacy reasons, I decided not to. So this is like the homepage, and in the about section, we have our goals, our logo, and the pictures. In the project section, we each wrote an article about what we thought was important in education, and like this. And in the material section, we have the presentation that we presented in class, the infographic that we made, like this, and the brochure that we made, this. Yeah, looks like this. And yeah, and we used Google Sites to make this website, and used Canvas to make those brochure, infographics, and the logo that was on the homepage, this one. And we made this last year when we were still in junior high school. This was made, we made this website in class and also at home, one per group of about 4 people, to further explain the details of the whole project we worked on. It was a difficult task for me because it was the first time making a website, but online applications and teamwork made it possible. Since it was a team project, collaboration between team members was essential. Everything was done online, and that made it possible for us to divide the work easily and see where each of us were working on at the moment. And we shared our website even between other groups, and it really helped me improve the layout and the content. And I think that we did a pretty good job for a beginner to make a website. And I thought I had 2 advantages of this project. Firstly, this project made me realize what was in the website, brochure, and infographics, and the effort behind them. This assignment was a good experience for me and broadened my view towards the layout and the details. And secondly, the skill of making a website and materials such as brochures and infographics helped me in other classes too. It is a skill that is needed even when we get older and even when we get into work. And I really think that it would help us there. Another thing I want to talk about is at the end of the project, we had a chance to write down which part we worked on, and it solved the problem of team working. Sometimes when we are working as a team, not all people have the same knowledge, skills, and enthusiasm, and it could lead to the inequality of the work each member did, or worse, one person doing all of the work. And I was glad that my work was actually assessed based on what I did, although it was a team project. And also having no rubric, we have rubrics such as, many teachers give us rubrics like this. And for Mr. Patterson class, we had no rubrics like this. And it was good. It was good. Sorry, it was good for me because I normally try too hard to make my work fit into it. But for this one, it was already clear what we should do since it was already stated in class.
Miss Hirai, I think you said if a rubric like this, at this point, we can still see your Google site.
Oh, really?
Maybe you want to check your screen sharing function to change away from the window to desktop, or rechange window. That'll give you a chance to show it to us all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now is it?
Yes, now we can see it.
Okay, sorry. Teachers give us rubrics like this, and I usually read so much into it, and I try my best to fit into it. But for this task, I was able to express my own abilities without like focusing on too much the rubric. And from my experience, about half of the students don't read it, but some of the students that are very interested in school and who take school seriously would read it deeply. So it is difficult. I feel that the teachers need to think about how detailed they have to be, yet how simple it has to be, not to pressure the students too much. And I'm done with the rubrics. Okay, so those classes that use this much technology are not so common even in an Ivy school like ours. But having a class like this really makes change to the way we think. And one problem is that when a student is weak on computers, or when they don't own one, that student would have many difficulties working on that project. And I hope that there would be equal technology provided to the students in the future. So that's it for me.
Miss Hirai, real quick, you said you're part of the IB.
Yeah.
Are you college or high school students?
Oh, we're high school. Oh, sorry, I forgot to explain about that. We're high school students right now, but do you know that there's the MYP and MYP for junior high school to high school, and the DP from high school?
For everyone who's going like DP, MYP, a lot of us teachers, we work at colleges. We've got people, I teach at Tokyo University of Science. We have the other people. These students are in fact high school students, part of the International Baccalaureate Organization, Kokusai Baccalaureate DP, diploma program. From the ages of 14 to 18, they're working on high-level study, completing an extended essay, among other things. And you were mentioning that there's some students who are in the middle school program, the MYP, middle years program. Would you speak about how they might be using this?
That was them last year. They were MYP last year when they made that website that you looked at.
So that was Chu-san that you were doing that work in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everyone, just so you know, all of our teachers are getting depressed. Just so you know. Everyone's like, oh my God, like Chu-san making like a project for a better school. Like, yeah, we're all like, oh my God. So yeah, there's a head explosion from Adam. I think I'm getting text messages from Tyson going like, these girls are better than the students. Okay, just letting you know and making sure that you are in fact high school students, not superhero
now, high school students now. The first year high school students, they were last year junior high school students when they were in my class last year.
We have a question that we can answer right now. Are you guys returnees? Are you Kikokushijo? Or is this a program based for Japanese students who are looking to apply themselves globally? And I asked this to Miss, not to Miss Arisa, to, yes, sorry, to, I lost my page.
But all of you, how many of the four of you are returnees?
I'm a returnee.
The 3 returnees and one
I'm not the
non-returnee.
returnee.
Oh, yeah. So a quick bit of context for people. Last year, they were in the last year of junior high school. That was my first year of teaching them. And the project that we did was a year-long project. Basically, The intro that I gave to you today about how Japan is behind in educational technology and classroom layout, etc., if you were Monbisho, how would you fix it? And I put them into teams of 3 or 4, and they had to go away and do research on what makes a good school. And they were looking at things like color schemes for relaxing people, desk structure, ergonomics, teacher style, you know, no graveyard models of desks, technology. They looked at everything, and each team had to come up with a plan for how they would improve the school. And they gave a presentation on the plan. They wrote a detailed report on the plan. They made infographics on the plan, and they made a website to host all of those things. And just when they thought they were done and they hit the summer, I said, right, that's your first drafts of all of the above. When we come back after the summer, we're going to improve them. And we did a second round of it. And what you're seeing here is what they were capable of producing at the end of their last year of junior high school. For me, that was pretty impressive. Some of my university students can't do that.
I'm going to second that fact. Some of your university students can't do that. Some of ours too. Girls, I'm so impressed. And as a young woman, I'm impressed you have now, but I'm looking forward to what you have soon. I want to keep making sure we have time for everyone. Would you introduce Ms. Tomoko?
Okay. Next, Tomoko will be talking about the blogs and conclude us all.
Thank you, Minori. And I am Tomoko Motohashi. I will talk about blog posting. As an assignment from Mr. Paterson, we write a reflection for each class. Indeed, other teachers tell us to write a reflection too. However, there is a significant difference between those teachers and Mr. Paterson. It is that whether we use technology or not to write a reflection. First of all, I will talk about how we post our blogs or reflection. We use an application called Blogger to share a review with classmates and the teacher. And I started using Blogger for the first time last year. So at first, I was surprised at writing a reflection on the internet, but it was really easy for me to start writing a reflection using Blogger. And I wasn't good at using computer technology, but many of the tools that Mr. Paterson taught us was really easy to use. And also, we use a tool called Feedly to read other students' reflection, and that was useful too. And next, I will talk about what to write for blogs. We have to write 3 paragraphs and each sentences each. At first, I thought the amount of writing was too much and too hard for me, and I thought Mr. Paterson was really a strict teacher, but I know he is a friendly teacher now. But actually, I thought it took 3 hours to write a reflection on the first day, but now I can write a reflection within 30 minutes. So that means that my writing system has improved, writing skill has improved, and I was glad to improve my writing skill. And next, I will talk about what are the advantages of a method of review. The first one is that we do never lose our homework on the internet. I have experienced to lose or forget to take the homework reading on paper to school. So if you use an online tool such as Blogger, you can't lose your tasks and you would be able to submit your homework anytime you want, even outside the school. And it's really a sorrowful event for me and other students to ruin the assignment by losing it. So I think using technology for assignment is imperative. And the second one is that we can write a reflection before we lose our memory. The teacher can check which time the students finished and posted the blog, which he cannot do on papers. So, and I do not feel like writing a blog for each class if the teacher does not check it frequently. And in Mr. Peterson's class, we have to post the blog within 3 days after finishing the class. So, and we will forget what we did in classes more than 4 days later. And the system that we can write a reflection using Blogger helped me to have the forethought and remember the important things I learned during the class from Mr. Peterson. And the third one is that everyone can understand the important things the teachers teach us. And we can share our blogs so the students who were absent from class or the students who couldn't understand the class can learn the essential things from the blogs that other students wrote. And I think it's important that everyone can understand the class. And next, I will talk about how we used our blogs during coronavirus pandemic. Mr. Peterson told us to read a novel and write a book review for the books. And we used blog to write the outline of story and what we felt about the books. And Mr. Peterson could understand which students read the book already and how many students couldn't finish reading the book. So I think Blogger worked well during the coronavirus pandemic too. And this is the end of my session, and I hope my presentation was useful for you. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, that was definitely useful. We have one question. You mentioned 2 pieces of software, Blogger for producing your own blogs, and was it Feedly? There was another service I heard, but I didn't catch exactly.
Yeah, it's Feedly, yeah.
And that's
So Feedly is an RSS reader. So if you want to monitor lots, why don't I just show you? The easiest way is if I just show you, right? Let me share my screen. Hold on. So we're all looking at my screen. Feedly is this. And in here, I've got different folders for different classes. So for example, the ladies that are speaking today, some of them are in this class here, 2020, year 4, means first year high school, class 1 and 2. And here's all the students in the class, and each student has their own blog. So Toko, you heard earlier on, and there's her blogs coming up. There's a blog. There's another one. There's another one. And Arisa should also be in this class. There's the blogs. There's the blogs. And same thing. There's a person's name here with a number. This is telling me there's a blog that I haven't read. It's in bold. There's one that I haven't read. And the same thing down here. Here's the other class. And there's one student who's got a blog that I haven't read. Tomoko, I've read them all. There's the blogs here. Minori, who you also heard today, I've read all of her blogs. You know, there's the blogs there. And for a teacher, I actually pay to have Feedly Pro, and it's amazing because Feedly Pro gives me really, really good search power. So they're writing book reviews, and maybe I want to, in their blog reviews about the novels, maybe I want to go to that particular group. Where are we? We're in here somewhere. Where did I put them? Ah, here we go. So I'm now searching every blog in the last 30 days for that folder, and all of there's Toko's blog post, and she's used the word protagonist. Blah, 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 blah. So it's a really, really powerful database building tool, because the more websites, the more blogs, the more things you put into it, the more you can data mine it to see what themes are coming out of it. And it enables me to read all the students' blogs in one place without having to navigate to each blog in one tab. And it also works on a phone, and it connects really well to social media. And if I wanted to send a reply to them, I can just click reply and type in my reply there. I could tweet it out or put it on Facebook or any one of a number of social medias because I have the pro version. And for students, they probably don't need all of that, but for me as a teacher, I definitely do. One last thing about the blogging, I didn't do it just to kind of give them a hard time. There actually is a pedagogical sound reason for doing this. I'm going to put this in the chat thread. There's an amazing book called Brain Rules by John Medina. Has anyone read it? Every teacher and every student should read this book. It's phenomenal. He's a neuroscientist, neurolinguist. Basically, he studies how our brains learn and process information. And as a teacher, trying to help students learn better, and as a student trying to learn better, if we understand how our brain works, it's much better. So the purpose of the blogs, and I have the students do this, I have them take their hand, take a fist, and punch the hand very hard. And you'll feel that tingling for 2 or 3 minutes. And if you're writing about the tingling while you're feeling it, you're a feeling reflective blog. But if you wait 3 hours later when the pain is gone and you try to write about it, it's not a feeling reflective blog anymore. It becomes a memory post. And human memories flush irrelevant information after 3 days. So I want them to write a reflective feeling blog post within 3 days of the class before the feeling has gone away, because I don't just want a recycled, in class we did A and B and C and D. I know they did A, B, C, and D because I was the person teaching it to them. I want their reactions to A, B, C, and D, their feelings, their reflections to it. And that means it has to be done within 3 days. And one of the hardest things at the beginning was getting students to adhere to this 3-day time limit, because students are used to doing these things. Oh, I have to do this for my teacher tomorrow. I'll do it now. And that's not what I'm looking for. So trying to get them into that more proactive model of doing things within 3 days of the class, that was the main purpose of the blogs. And also it's double function. If students are absent, they can read the blogs and see what they've missed. If students need to revise anything, they've got a record of what they felt and what they've done. So that's about as much as I wanted to say about all of that. Shannon, you want to take us into another sequence?
I do want to take us in on that note about making sure that we still have the tingles going. I want to say first, thank you all for all 4 of you and Mr. Patterson for organizing that. At first, I am a simple man. In my head is a big potato. And I wasn't quite sure what is so necessary about having blogging. I have students who can write me papers. That's fine for me. Online, they can send me emails. But you made it clear that blogging provides the tools necessary. Blogger provides an instrument for students to quickly, easily publish their thoughts. You're using Feedly to capture and organize and compare those thoughts more easily. That was based off our last presenter. But before I go any further, whether it's Toko, Ms. Tomoko, Ms. Arisa, or Minori, I'd like to get some feedback from Ms. Shimada, who has questions as well as some statements. So Minori, would you take it away?
Yeah, I was just really like to give a big applaud to everyone. It was really, yeah, all the presentation that was really, yeah, was kind of shocked, you know, compared to the student that I have in the university. But anyway, so I have 3 questions actually. The one is the first, Arisa did the presentation first, and I was really impressed at how, like, she talks about the eye contacting, the importance of eye contacting, and her, like, you know, even though it's through the online, it was really natural to me, and I actually like to learn. It's very difficult to like look into the audience through this screen, and I was just wondering how she got that technique, or like it's just came from her, you know, usual practice. And the second question is maybe to all of you that I have a student kind of losing a really much confidence. So I thought this, that using Zoom, there is a breakout room session. So when I don't re-intervene them, and I thought the discussion would be really enhanced and they became more active. When I visited each group, that it depends on the group, but some just group didn't, like we have a kind of strict rule that they can't show their faces, even though in the group presentation, like discussion like that. But even so, then that they really like mute the microphone and there's no discussion going on, and I just like to have some idea how they can be motivated, that kind of situation. And the last question is, I recently, my brain is kind of packed with all this information that you gave me. So I really thank all of that. But so one that the tool that I recently kind of hear is a Flipgrid. Maybe it's a very basic question that I'm not really good at this, all the technologies, but if you ever use it, and what's the good, like some teachers suggested to use it for presentation practice. So yeah, I'd like to get some information. So thank you very much.
I can make a quick comment on Flipgrid. I first used it years ago, and I didn't like it that much, and I didn't pay much attention to it. And now a good colleague of mine's, Dan Ferreira, he's another JALT PAT member, another Google trainer. He just recently came across it this year, and he said, oh, this is amazing, this is good. So based on his recommendation, I'm going to go back and have another look at it. When I looked at it, maybe it was like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe it wasn't ready for prime time, but he's saying, wow, it's really good now. So this is the thing, there's obviously an evolution in the quality of these tools. I would say I haven't used it yet because I wasn't impressed ages ago, but it's got a good recommendation from someone I trust and respect. So I am going to go and have another look at it. So yeah, I definitely suggest you do the same. He's raving about it, and he's somebody that I respect in the ed tech world.
Thank you very much. Very useful.
Minori, your 3 questions are: 1, how did Arisa and other students get so natural at communicating with the camera? 2, in many schools, it's a case that we don't show our faces. You're asking for advice or feedback on how to make it more natural, is that right?
Enhance their discussion, you know.
Okay.
That's also.
And we got some feedback on Flipgrid, so let's go to those first 2 now. So dear Gakugekai, how do you guys, was it easy? Does it take much time to be able to develop good camera discipline? And how do you help people engage with the camera?
First, I'll be talking about the first question, then Minori will be talking about the second, answering about the second question.
Of course you will.
So for the first question, I believe that we had a practice before this by ourselves, and we checked where the camera was, and we commented on each other where we should look and how it would turn out. So I think that was how it helped us speak more naturally. And the fact that we're speaking naturally is probably because we practiced. We didn't practice 40 times like Jaws did, but we did practice enough so that we can speak naturally. So does that answer your question?
Can I make another point about the cameras as well? If you're a techie, you're probably going to have really bad camera discipline, because I have 2 monitors and I'm looking here because I'm looking at all of your faces, but my camera that's on is over there. So if I look and I have the really good camera discipline here, I don't see your faces and I don't see your reactions. And I like to see your faces and the reactions, which means you're maybe only getting 1 profile of me. And, you know, I hope that's my handsome side. But yeah, when you've got like 2 different monitors or 2 different cameras or so on, the camera discipline tends to go out the window quite a bit, because I'm more interested in looking at my audience and seeing the reactions rather than them being able to see the blue and the white of my eyes. If you're on a smaller laptop and you don't have that option, it's going to be easier. Anyway, I'll let Minori jump in for the second question.
It is the case that they did demonstrate excellent camera discipline. So whether it's a big camera, a small TV, or whatever, you guys killed it and we're impressed. Thank you so much. So the second question, or what are some things you can do to help develop a community of communication over this thing, whereas most students volume off, camera off, change name to reconnecting, whatever they can do to avoid speaking.
Yeah, and also the Japanese tend to be shy, you know, especially girls. Yeah.
Can I'll be trying to answer that question. I feel that it makes us nervous when we're talking online because we're not talking person to person, and I feel a wall between us when we're talking in like Zoom or like Teams online, and I don't know, but because we're having a wall between us, we don't have to talk to each other. We could just shut it down and we could just stay in our own world where we are happy without any like distractions. And I feel that like when we're having a discussion, we each know that we need to have a discussion, but there's no like trigger to start a discussion. And I think that when we are having a discussion, we need the trigger. And mostly every single student there is thinking that, oh, I will have to speak, everyone else would talk. And that really happened when I was like trying to have a gaming class where we needed to interact with each other to continue the game. And as a solution, maybe teachers could provide a chance to like make them speak. Like if they're new to each other, you could just make them introduce themselves or talk about what they like or their favorite fruit or whatever, something detailed perhaps, to make them know each other. And or furthermore, you can provide the trigger. If you can provide the trigger, I think that the discussion will continue on and on if they know each other well enough. And I hope that it answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. I was always focusing on the content of the discussion, but maybe they need to kind of warm up, as you said. Yeah, thank you very much. That was a good idea.
I would like to take this trigger to ask someone who's teaching at a university that, among other programs, produces a lot of young teachers, and that's Sam Reed of Rikudai. Sam, what do you think about what you're seeing today? What's going on in your head as you watch these 4 young women and Mr. Patterson just kill it on the microphone and video?
Yeah, thanks. I'll just take out my headphones. It's a little different for me because, as you said, I've been working at universities for about 14, 15 years, so I don't know much about the high school system. But over that time, I've noticed that the students that come to take my classes have really vastly different levels of tech expertise, as some people have already mentioned. So, for example, some people will know what to do without any instruction. Some people are still sending me emails 10 weeks into the course, not understanding what to do. So there's, like we talked about, there's a big level. So it's good to see that you 4 guys obviously are digital natives, real digital natives. You can use more than just Facebook and TikTok. You can actually use it for learning. So that's kind of nice. And that would be particularly useful because I guess everyone else has experienced the same thing. Teaching online, teaching fully online, there's a lot of useful benefits that we can get if students know how to do this. Just for example, if I'm teaching a writing class, even though I'm sitting in my bedroom, I have all the students, the teacher can share a Google document and the teacher can flip between all students' individual Google document. Like we did at the start where everyone inputted information into Rab's document. But for a writing class, you can, it's actually superior to face-to-face because you can see the students typing into the document. So you can see their thought process in a way that you can't see when someone's writing with a pen or pencil. So the great advantage of these Google Documents is you can literally see students making corrections and making changes. And that's really, really useful for the teacher, because you can get inside the student's head in a way that I've never been able to do before. And so if more students were familiar with this kind of thing, that would be really helpful from a university teacher's point of view. Yeah. And I guess just to refer to a couple of the other points, Minori, you were talking about making students discuss on Zoom. I just shout at them and say they're going to fail the course. That's a bit easier when it's a university class, because you can actually do that. But yeah, just shout, what are you doing? Talk to each other. What's going on here? I found that works best. It's not very, it's a sledgehammer, but it works. Also, Rab was talking about the book Brain Rules. I would also recommend reading that to help with all your aspects of teaching. And Brain Rules for Baby, if you or a partner is pregnant, that's also a good one.
Sam, can I ask you a question?
Sorry, Shannon. That was really long.
Can I ask you a question, Sam? You mentioned about, you know, Google Documents, seeing the students typing and making the mistakes. Have you used the draft back function?
What's the draft back function?
Let me share screen again.
Can you share it?
Okay. So this is a student's e-portfolio, and I've got permission to share this. She did amazing work for me. She's one of my university students. So you can see at the top, I've added the draft back extension. Can you guys see all the button here? Yeah?
Yeah.
That's an extension that you add to Google Docs. So if I click this,
mate, don't just go away.
And it's going to start loading these 4,922 revisions. So on a Google document, you've actually seen, I guess, the version history where you can jump back in time, yeah?
Yeah, you can see the date in which they made the changes.
Yeah. So what
DraftBack
does is DraftBack actually leverages those changes, and it will start with a blank document. It'll probably take about 5 minutes to load this because it's a big one. But what it will then do is it will play you the document as a video with all the typings, all the deletions, and all the things being added. It's like watching a video of the creation of the document. But if it's, this will take a bit of time, so I won't go through it all. But if it eventually loads, I'll play it and I'll let you see how it works. But that means that even if you're not physically watching the Google Doc as it's being typed, you've got a way to come back later and watch the creation of it like a video of the document.
Okay, right. That's an extension,
really well. Yeah, it's called DraftBack.
Rab, earlier you spoke about there's only 9.9% of our teachers actively using ICT in classrooms. I can believe that now because I don't know what ICT actually means until I've seen your students demonstrating a full court press of deliberating discussions, providing feedback, collating. That's a true application of ICT. We bring in an overhead camera once a year, and there's our ICT credit finished. So Sam, thank you for your complete thoughts. I'm going to kick it over to Adam J.
Adam, you're next.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I was actually just going to add to what Sam was saying and what I'm trying to remember who actually said it beforehand, but was talking about if you're going into a forum, you need to have a trigger. I think it was Minori, right? Yeah. So when you need that trigger to start the discussion, one of the triggers that really gelled with me very well, because I thought, okay, I do that when I send my students into breakout rooms. I do make sure that they carry a trigger with them, usually in the form of a question that kickstarts the conversation. And the idea is, okay, this is a set question. My students are nowhere near as high level as you guys. You guys are fantastic. But my guys are on the way to fantastic. So for them, though, they're a little bit nervous on getting into the breakout rooms with their friends and don't want to, perhaps don't want to be the first one to speak. But the first person who asks the trigger question is the last person who has to speak. Because once they've said the trigger question, somebody else has to answer it. And they get to choose who has to answer it. So they can say, oh, okay, so Rab, what are you doing next Sunday? And now Rab has to answer the question. He has no choice. He's locked on, target locked on. So yeah, the trigger thing, I think it's great. And I've tried the, now, damn it, just talk. And that didn't, the question thing works a little bit better. So, cheers.
Shannon, your mic's not on.
Sorry, we've had quite a bit of wonderful performances by our students, and there are still some questions on the board floating around. Adam, you got your hand up. I'm not sure if you know you have your hand up. Take your hand down, Adam. At this point, we have about 30 minutes on the clock. We have an option to have a guided discussion, but before that happens, I'd like to kick it back to Mr. Paterson to do it as you please. Any last parting moments, anything that has yet to be shared, I give the floor to you.
Okay, I want to come back to the blogs because I think this is important. When students are writing reflections, class journals or whatever in a little notebook, they're usually private unless they, here, look at this and show it to one of their friends. Now, there is the possibility of making the blogs 100% private. And, you know, bearing in mind that junior high school students, they're not adults, we turn off a lot of the public things so they're not found by search engines. No one's going to stumble across it and whatever. So in that respect, privacy is preserved. But I want to emphasize the fact that they're writing for we rather than writing for me. So the blogs are set so that even though they're private, anyone with the direct link can read each other's blogs. And the only people who have the direct link is me and every other student in the class. So it's encouraging to get the students to read each other's blogs and sometimes leave comments on them so that it's not just me who's reading the blogs. I know that Toko last year did a load of really, really interesting blogs that were really kind of weird, wacky, wild, off the beaten track styles, and they were great because what you're looking for as a teacher is diversity and creativity. And Minori mentioned this a little bit, you know, when she mentioned that I didn't really like being forced into the IB rubrics. That was because when I gave them the school task of how would you fix the school, I didn't want to put any preconceived notions into their head. I wanted them to approach this in as wide a way possible. And whereas rubrics for me are always a little bit limiting, and I didn't want that, I wanted them to come up with really creative ideas. And some of them in previous years have came up with really, really creative ideas, even looking at the smells in the classroom, bringing in like aromatherapy oils and plants to make people more relaxed. One team looked at that 2 years ago. So there's been really amazing things, indoor, outdoor classrooms, movable classrooms, wherever. And, you know, the websites that the students make reflect that creativity. How can I really put a rubric on that thing without me actually then designing their website for them? So I get what they were saying there. And again, the websites, they're open to every other team in the class. They're not open to the general public because it's writing for the enclosed we rather than just me. But we do have to take privacy concerns careful. And, you know, with Google Docs, for example, everything is usually set to only the people with the link, because then we can control who's got the link. Now, we did have one issue with that a couple of years ago, that one student then posted the link on a line group and the link got out. And the school weren't very happy. So I fixed that. And what I actually did then was I added people to the documents by email address rather than by link. But that's something that we can't usually do in the early stages of the course because you don't know everyone's email address. But once you've got them, you can then turn off the link sharing so that it's only people. So at the end of the day, all this technology stuff is great, but especially when we're dealing with students who are not classed as adults, we need to be a bit sensitive to the security issues and privacy issues as well. And if any of them are European, that brings up a whole different set of rules, because of the new European rules and privacy and so on. So a lot of things that we have to be a bit careful with, but that's no reason why we still can't bring our creativity to bear into the classroom. And I think what you've saw from these four today is examples of how they've been very, very creative in the work that they are doing. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with them. Now, I think it was Minori-san, you mentioned something about girls are usually shy with Japanese girls. My experience has been the opposite. If you notice which four students I've brought along tonight, they're no boys. I would say the opposite. A lot of the girls that I teach at the university too, they're not very shy at all. Sometimes some of them are too noisy and you have to get them to be quiet because I'm trying to explain something. So my experience has maybe been the other way around. So just to kind of round this off, the one thing I would say is when I started doing all this ed tech stuff about 10, 15 years ago, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But I thought, yeah, I can see where this would be useful. I started doing the research, started doing this, and now I do know what I'm doing. You can do the same. And there's tons of resources out there. Most of them are on that master document that I shared. There's a link down at the bottom. It goes to Google's EDU page. There's Microsoft's EDU page. There's even amazing resources there where there's pre-made lessons. Shannon, are we okay for time? Can I take 5 more minutes?
We can take 5 more minutes. You have high school students who you're keeping up till 9 o'clock.
They've not seen this either. This is going to be useful for them.
I'm going to give you, I want to say one thing very quickly.
Yep.
You have given us links to the document. You have given us the names of various services, extensions, and applications of those. More than anything, what you've given us tonight is real examples of the value of this relationship between students and teacher, between students and the content, and the process of learning. More than anything else, more so than one single application, all of us will remember these stories and these 4 young women and how they developed. And I think that is the incredible value of this group. So if we could have a handshake coming on from there, whatever happens next, you guys got to know that this is going to be a landmark memory for those of us moving forward, between those who thought like me, like, oh, my kids are quiet, and versus like, but that's not the only world that we live in. We do have students, and we do have the chance to create that better world. So before we go anything further, I want to say the value I see, more so than one application, is these 4 young women's stories, and thank you for making that happen. Patch, 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 patch. And back to you, Mr. Patterson.
Last thing for today, going back to that document, where is it? It's this one here. Not too many tabs open. I'll close a few of these down. Let's get rid of some of these first. Okay, get rid of some of these. Here's our main document. And at the bottom, there's a link here to Google's Applied Digital Skills. And if we click on this, it takes us to the online Google Applied Digital Skills page. I'm a teacher. I'm already logged in. I can go to my account. My profile's here. My classes are here. I'm just very quickly going to show you the class. And I made a little model here. It's called Saitama Test. And if I open this up, in here is a lesson that I put together. For example, how to create a resume in Google Docs. And what this does, the Applied Digital Skills, as a teacher, when you look at this, there's a session where you can click on the lessons, and there are about 100 lessons here, fully made, ready to rock and roll, ready to go. You just choose the level of your students, bearing in mind these are set for American students. So if you've got lower level, high school, but lower level, you might want to choose middle school. And it will bring up all the lessons here that are appropriate for middle school. And you can choose one, create a presentation about a topic. We can preview this.
In this activity, you'll create a presentation that informs an audience about a topic. This example will be all about you. But your
I've got this set to fast speed because I listen fast. If you've got weaker students, you can put it down to slow speed.
It could be about anything, such as all about cars.
And you've got the transcripts of what's being said at the bottom. We go through all of this, then we get to the next part, which is lesson 2. There's another video, you can speed it up, slow it down, transcripts are here, and occasionally we'll get to bits where there are tasks here for the students to do, making a slideshow, making a document or whatever. And if you like this, we can add this to the class. Choose which class you want to add it to, Saitama test, add it. So now, when I go back to my Saitama test, there's 2 lessons in here. Create a resume, create a presentation. I can track the progress of the students, how many of them have done it, how many of them haven't done it. I can see the people who are in here, and you can see Steve Henneberry and Scott Peterson were in this one because I used it for the Nagoya presentation last time. So if you guys can all go here, there's the teacher code here to join the class for co-teachers. Now, if I want this for students, this is the class the code I would share here. So that code, you can see it, I've already got it here. If anybody wants to play around with that, you can just go to that link, Applied Digital Skills, choose teacher or student, whatever suits you, log into the class and use that code. But for teachers, because there's over 100 of these things here, you can pull in what you need to populate a whole course with lessons that are made by Google professional innovators, trainers, and whatever. And even if you're a student and you want to do something without your teacher, you can still go in here and take lessons that Google actually suggests you take. So that's the last thing that I want to mention about that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Over 100 fully equipped lessons ready to rock and roll. You just got to drag them in like you would put content into Moodle. And it's professional learning for adults, it's research learning for kids, it's writing, it's everything you could ever want. You can just pull them in. The only issue is I think so far they're only available in English. They're not available in other languages. But you know, knowing Google, they'll eventually roll these things out. You can put subtitles on, you've got the speed up the track. Really, really powerful tools that most teachers don't even know that's there. So with that, that's me. I'll shut up. I'll pass it back to Shannon for a comment on that. He's making funny faces.
I get the feeling like we are people who are shopping and we're looking for a good cereal or a nice breakfast thing to go with. And we're introduced to Mr. Patterson, who's good at cereal. And instead of taking us to show the cereal, he takes us to NASA and is like, well, on the next space launch, we'll be using this. And what I'd like to say is that I will believe I'll get there. And it's taken me a few seconds to realize what I'm looking at. I use Google Classrooms about 6 hours a day. I've never seen that. I talk to people who claim to be Google administrators. I've never seen or heard of that. Have I made 15 hours working on videos on how to upload from your phone? Yes, I have. Did you just show me the video made at a higher quality? Yes, you did. So it's a bit of a shock to me to realize how little I know. There's a curve of like the Dunning-Kruger effect, like how much you think you know versus how much you know versus how much you know and how much you don't actually know. And I'm here in the gulf of sadness. I'm aware of what I don't know and only aware of all the things I don't know. And I know that I don't know, and I just saw some of them. But not enough about me. Mr. Caridi, I think you've got some guided discussion to kind of wrap this up so that we can finish with some words from Mr. Morgan, from Mr. Rode. We're going to come back to Mr. Reed, Mr. Jenkins, and we'll call it a wonderful night and let these people get some rest. So, Mr. Caridi, I believe you have the question prepared?
Yes, I have one question with regards to the peer review. The way you used Google Docs for comments on each other's work, I think that was a really nice way to use it, and I never thought of that. So I'm pretty surprised that it came up. I'm like, wow, that's a good way to use it. I was just wondering, do you make groups and comment on each other's papers, or does the whole class have access to everyone's papers, or how exactly does it work? And is it really effective to correct your paper or to modify it to make it better? So my question is along these lines. Thank you.
Very, very quick. The whole class has access to everybody's documents, but the only people I expect to comment on each other's documents are the people who are in the groups. Now, there's two types of groups. If it's a project group, like the one they did to make their school better, I just randomly assigned people because I didn't want people working with their friends. I wanted to take them out of their comfort zone. But for my university classes where they're writing much more detailed papers, I let them form their own groups with people who were writing on similar topics. So if you've got 3 students who are writing a history paper, they would form a history group. If I had 3 students who were doing a sociology paper, they would form a sociology group. But for the project group that were the school students, I just randomly put them in. But in all those classes, everybody's got access to have a look because we're writing for we, but only the team members comment.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So anyone else who might have questions? Stephen?
Kishal, I think you typed to me, you had a great question prompt saying, we talked about identifying tools which could either substitute, augment, modify, or redefine learning experience, talking about the use of collaborative development, talking about the use of in-time reflective blogging, and then also talking about the effective conditions, what happens when you have a positive attitude towards speaking. So those 4 things, looking at tools, collaborative blogging, reflective discussion, reflective blogging, and then having a positive community. What do you see as a thing that you wish to aspire to? Which do you see as a thing that you have already? Going in order of who I want to speak the most, Mr. Morgan. With your experience, what are you seeing tonight, and what do you see as something that all of us should be thinking about tomorrow morning based off this experience?
Right. Well, the one thing is to not be, what should I say, not be fearful, you know, to use what things you've seen that might work for you and not overwhelm yourself or not to overwhelm the students with too many things going on in the same class. So my first online teaching, if you can believe it or not, was about 20 years ago at KO, who asked me to develop, and it was totally asynchronous, but I developed, like, for a writing class, each student was divided into kind of a pod system where they had to comment on each other's work every week and send it back. So there's a lot of ways to go about this. I have found, somebody asked about Flipgrid. They're now just launching like their 3rd generation. Once they got bought out by Microsoft, they totally revamped, and Flipgrid is absolutely fantastic. The students make their own videos. The students comment on each other. They leave videos commenting on other students' videos. So it's like a branch sort of thing. So my students, whether it's like freshman commerce students or my highest level international relations students at Gakushūin, they're eating it up because they make their presentations on Flipgrid. They're watching, so they have to watch each other's videos and make comments. So I just watched last night Flipgrid's launch party. And August 1st, they have like a total rework, and it's just amazing what's going on. So I highly recommend you look into it. I use it for oral fluency class, so students are every week posting their samples. Used to be just sound samples, now it's visual, so it has body language along with their speaking abilities. So that's been something I jumped onto. So with Zoom and Moodle and Flipgrid, that's been my platform. But the main thing I would say is, not to fear. do the best you can. I realize I'm really lucky because there's no restrictions at either Gakushuin or Musashi, because the students can choose to show themselves or not. And so during our breakout rooms, they're open and they're engaged, and they always, from me, they have a task to discuss. Sometimes it's a prompt, like I would show them a quick, like a 3-minute TED Ed talk about a current topic or something, and then okay, now you have to talk about this for the next, and that's breaking the ice at the beginning of class. Then we move into the class content. But every class starts with about a 10-minute breakout room thing, and I start the day with a topic, and here's what you're going to talk about. Go for it. So from day one, they're like, they're just used to this. I'm going to have to talk to my friends, and it's going to have to be in English. And because Mr. Morgan's going to drop in at any moment, and so, so I guess that would just be my thing, do what you can, don't be fearful, try, Rab has just given us, it's like a semester course in one evening, take what you need, leave the rest, and grow with it in time, so anyway, and to the students that presented, just fantastic, and thank you, hearing that direct as was mentioned here about, Matt said about the stories, because that's what it's about, it's about our stories, and anyway, so anyway, good luck to everybody. And I have a secret desire that we get to do online teaching again in the fall, because now I'm just getting it.
Yeah.
And I'd rather keep another semester of this and then come with a clean slate April 2021 and start with new classes, and that's my secret wish, but we'll see. Anyway.
Stephen, are you still involved with the Tokyo Youth Choir?
I'm on the, I'm conductor emeritus and on the board of directors. Yeah, so.
Some of your friends, Tokyo Gakugei students, some of your friends from Tokyo it's called, not Tokyo High School, Tokyo International School, some other IB programs, they've participated with Mr. Morgan over the years in the Tokyo Youth Choir.
Thank you.
I've seen all you guys. I was at one of your benefits at Frijoles, which is where I go for my Mexican food.
Of course. Yeah.
That was like 8 years ago.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my night job, is doing choral conducting and orchestra conducting, which is all in dry dock at the moment. But yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Stephen is also the last one to have no restrictions. As we have time, Tyson, Adam, Minori, I'd like your 3 words that help describe your feelings for this evening. 3 words, starting with Tyson. No typing. Speaking only, Mr. Rode.
Amazing, thought-provoking, and new beginnings. So that's 4 words, sorry.
I know you have a good relationship with your wife, Tomoko. What are you going to tell her about what you just saw tonight? What's gonna strike you?
Well, just similar to what you said, Matt, when you have a discussion like this, it really opens up so many new doors. And, I thought I knew some things, but now I'm kind of excited again. Tomorrow I'm going to, get up and come to school and get online, and with a whole new excitement for all the possibilities that there are moving forward. So I'd like to thank Mr. Paterson and his students for providing this experience where we've all shared collaboratively. It's been an awesome evening, and I hope we can please come back. Please come back to SaitamaJALT. We want to have you back.
Well, I live in Saitama, so it's not too far away.
Hey, awesome. That's great. I'm a Saitama guy too.
Tyson, thank you. Adam, same question. What are your 3 takeaways? What are your 3 moments, thoughts, feelings, words?
Oh, for 3 words, I was going to go with, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because you guys really blew my mind completely. I mean, just the amazing presentations you all gave. So that was absolutely fantastic. And I think you've really done, all of the teachers here who have attended and the ones who will watch it in the future as the recording goes out, you've done us all a great service. In particular, it's sometimes hard to get good feedback from students on the techniques that we are implementing and to find out whether these are actually working for students or not. You gave us feedback and a half. You told us exactly what your feelings were, how you actually felt, how you felt it helped you, what you felt was beneficial, and things like that. And it's just been an amazing experience to come in and hear you guys present tonight. So really great job. Really, I mean, I really feel that, hey, it was worth my while for sure. Coming in here, I've got a lot out of it, and feel kind of bad that I can't really give you that much back in return, but maybe next time.
Thank you, Adam. That means a lot. Kashal, I'd like you to say 3 words, and then Minori, I'm going to ask you to close the evening with your thoughts as both a teacher and someone who has young kids of their own. So Kashal, 3 words, or what would you tell someone about this conversation tomorrow? What's your takeaway?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Patterson as well as the students. And the 2 important things I want to mention is the first one to Mr. Patterson. It's really amazing that you didn't just tell us what to do, but you showed us how to do it exactly. And I think that was the most important thing here. And I'm really gonna take away those little things that make quality of life changes to our teaching. I knew a lot of the things, a lot of the programs and things that you use, but the way you use them is the key, I think. So I'm really happy to learn about these things. As for the students, I'm blown away by the quality of your presentations. So that's amazing. And one thing I'd like to mention is a lot of teachers don't usually take their students' opinions to heart. And that's something I want to change. I'm also guilty of this. So I want to hear students out. I want to help them based on their feedback. And I think this session has really showed me that we need to be listening to our students. So yeah, those are my 2 big takeaways. Thank you.
Thank you, Kashal. Before I give it to our Ms. Minori for our last final comment, I have 3 words, and this is for the 4 young women, and they'll get this, and Rab will get it too.
You're gonna wrap up, okay, Matt?
You got it, Minori. I'm just gonna say 3 things. I'm actually a PYP coordinator in a previous life. I'm now at Kaisei. It's a big nerd school, but I was teaching Kaichi Nozomi, which is also a public-private Ichijoko school. So I know what Rab is going through. I know what you guys are going through. And while I know you're reflective, but I'm going to say you're principled, risk takers, and balance. Communicators is on there as well. I think you guys have got it. You're looking for what is how much to be safe. When you're talking about how much to control myself, how much to share with others. So I think you're balanced in terms of being honest, but also being social. I think you're principled in how you're able to reflect and talk about these things and say how they apply to others. You've given us the language that we need. And you're risk takers because you're here tonight, and that's awesome. With that, I'm giving my coded message, completing it. Minori, would you take it away?
I can't, I'm not confident to wrap up in a nice way, but the 3 words, the first one is trigger for sure. Like I received trigger, and also I learned that will work for my student. And the second one may be bright. I see the bright future after looking at all the presentation of young Japanese women. And yeah, so that's definitely true. Maybe teamwork, because you all kind of like did this wonderful rehearsal, and all of them talked about the focus point was really great. And as Kushal said, also I learned the student point of view, like the rubric that you know, like explained, and I kind of something that I forgot about, you know, and really learned a lot. So yeah, thank you. So many to take away. More than
thank you
three.
so much. Everyone, thank you all for your time tonight. Rab, this has been your event, and Miss Toko, Miss Tomoko, Miss Arisa, Miss Minori, thank you so much. I hope, oh, I have a question for the four of you. When is your upcoming exhibition or any virtual exhibitions? When can us and our students, when can we come visit you, whether it's this year or 2 years or 3 years? Or also tell Rab if you have any action, any service things that you need done, any surveys done, you kick it our way. We'll help you out with that, okay? So maybe you can answer it later, like when is the next time we can see you virtually, because that's going to thing me in the future. But you've got some people who are committed to seeing you develop, even if it's just us validating your experiences by coming to watch you grow. So I'll stop there. Mr. Patterson, I think it's our time to call it an evening. I yield the last few minutes to you.
All I just want to say is thanks to them for coming along, you know, because when you get good students, it's hard to go wrong. Half the battle is already done when you start with motivated students, and these four are pretty motivated. They've done really good work for me last year. They're doing good work this year. I had no hesitation in asking them to come along. And, you know, they were all about, you know, do we need to practice wherever? And I said, look, my class, how strict I am with the presentations there is probably more strict than you're going to get from the audience here. Just go along and enjoy yourselves. And it looks like they did. So I'm pretty happy that they came along and joined me. So yeah, so I just want to say a big thanks to them. And okay, thanks to you guys for having me on here. So that's about it. And if you do want to get me back, or me plus them, we can work out something.
We know how to work it out. Arisa, Toko, Tomoko, Minori, on behalf of Saitama, we're going to offer you a little something, tiny something, some Amazon gifts or gift cards. I'll be speaking to Mr. Rab. He'll be distributing those shortly. Everyone, left hand, right hand, put them together. Round of applause for EdTech Workshop Online featuring Mr. Patterson, Ms. Hata, Ms. Motohashi, Ms. Hirai, and just Arisa. That's fine. Thank you again so much.
Thank you for having us.
Any and all questions you may have in the future, please direct them to Mr. Patterson or myself. I believe you can just leave a comment via the Magic of Google or contact him via the doc link. When this session closes, we will be losing our links, but we should be able to put them online to our Saitama JALT event page. We'll have a link to the document. Thank you again, and have a wonderful evening. And take these moments and pay them forward.